Hey folks, welcome to Sumit Academy. In this, my sixth video on terrorism, we shall study some of the important causes of terrorism. First, we have the 1920s and 1930s, when socialism was a cause. In the early 20th century, terrorists justified violence in the name of anarchism, socialism, and communism. Socialism was becoming a dominant way for many people to explain the political and economic injustice they saw developing in capitalist societies and for defining a solution. Millions of people expressed their commitment to a socialist future without violence, but a number of people in the world thought violence was necessary. Then came the period 1950s to the 1980s, when nationalism was a cause. Terrorist violence in these years reflected the post-World War II trend, in which previously suppressed populations committed violence against states that had not given them a voice in the political process. Algerian terrorism against French rule, Basque violence against the Spanish state, Kurdish actions against Turkey, the Black Panthers and the Puerto Rican militants in the United States all sought a version of independence from oppressive rule. From the 1980s onwards, religious justifications have been a cause of terrorism. In the 1980s and 1990s, terrorism began to appear in the repertoire of right-wing, neo-Nazi or neo-fascist, racist groups. Like the terrorist actors that preceded them, these violent groups reflected the extreme edge of a broader and not necessarily violent backlash against developments during the civil rights era. White, Western, European, or American men in particular grew fearful of a world beginning to grant recognition, political rights, economic franchise, and freedom of movement in the form of immigration to ethnic minorities and women who might seem to be taking their jobs and position. The 1980s represented a time when the welfare state had expanded in the United States and Europe. The agitation of the civil rights movement had produced results, and globalization in the form of multinational corporations was underway, producing economic dislocation among many who depended on manufacturing for a living. Economic dislocation because of the Gulf War in the 1990s caused many Palestinian, Egyptian, and other men working in the Persian Gulf to lose their jobs. When they returned home, they found women had assumed their roles in households and jobs. Religious conservatism, including the idea that women should be modest and not work, took hold in this atmosphere. And in this way, both West and the East saw a rise in fundamentalism in the 1990s. The Islamic Jihad in Egypt and groups such as the Army of God in the United States were willing to use religion to justify violence. Religion is the primary way that terrorism is explained today. In the future, it is likely that environment will be the major cause of terrorism. New terrorism forms are now underway, Special interest terrorism is used to describe people and groups who commit violence on behalf of a very specific cause. These are often environmental in nature. Some predict the rise of green terrorism in Europe, violent sabotage on behalf of environmental policy. Animal rights activists have also revealed a fringe violent edge. Just as in earlier eras, these forms of violence reflect the dominant concerns of our time across the political spectrum. Well, that is all from me in this, the sixth video on types of terrorism. Do not forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel so that you do not miss out on my future videos. In the meantime, do write in with your suggestions to sumitacademy20@gmail.com. Cheers.